Hey y'all, this is Julia Hatfield, and you're listening to the Garrett Smith Podcast. I love with Rich.
Oh gosh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason we're laughing is because I'm trying to break what I call the Stone Creek curse. Everyone I've had on here who has recorded at Stone Creek, we get like 10 minutes into the episode and it cuts and we have to start over. I'm actually checking audio levels now and it looks like we are good. So
awesome.
Well, here we are. This one, we've been trying to schedule this one for a while. And so today we've got Julia Hatfield here. And the reason I love getting episodes like this scheduled is because Julia is one of the busiest people I see. If you follow her, she's always on the road, always going somewhere, usually telling a hilarious story on her Instagram stories. So Julia, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm just glad you find it amusing because I'm sure some people are just thinking I just really don't have my which they'd be right, but it's humorous.
All right, so we're one bleep in. We got, 42? What did we say, 42 left to go?
Yeah, I got 42. So, yeah, you gave me the go-ahead. So.
I gave you the go-ahead. Well, I had, I want to say it was on, it was either Kinsey Coppin or Jade Marie Podcast. I forgot which episode it was. It was like we're at the very end, somebody cussed, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Is that allowed?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're good."
Is that allowed? Yeah.
Well,
this is Texas.
It's Texas. It's whatever. So I mentioned that you've been busy. Kind of tell us what you've been up to lately.
Well, as we speak, I'm driving down the road.
Shocker.
Since October 1st, that did the math, and I think I've put about 2,600 miles on my car.
Jeez.
What's today? I don't even know what today is. So it's late October.
Well, in 2020, all days are the same.
Yes, this is true. This is very true. Yeah, it's been busy. Friday had a show in Austin, and then had a bunch of mishaps happen trying to get to my show at Luckenbach last night. And I'll tell you what, it was a blast. It was such a blast. I've been singing at Luckenbach since I could join the Picker Circle and got to open for some amazing artists out there. And so I was there last night with Max and Heather Stalling. And
oh, wow.
Just a great, great crowd. Usually as an opener, you never know what you're going to get. So it's like, is there going to be anybody there? And I walked up on stage, and it was on their big outdoor stage. I hadn't played on that one yet. And looked out in the crowd, and there were hundreds of people just sitting there, like, waiting for me to sing, just staring right at me. And I was like, okay, well, here we go.
That's so cool.
Yep.
I'll tell the audience here that I tried for, I want to say, maybe 2 years to get to come see Julia play somewhere. And then after it fell through every time. It was like clockwork. And then finally, I get to go see 2 shows in 1 month. So I guess I was just kind of making up for lost time. But at the last one you did, it was down in Buda at Buck's Backyard. And you had a pretty good crowd there before Sam Riggs came out to play. I mean, I'd say that room was probably half full. All the tables were full at least. Yeah,
it was a really good crowd. It was so refreshing to just be around that many people at a show because it's been so spread out and just smaller groups for, most of the year. And that was a really refreshing show. Well, I enjoyed that a lot.
I probably shouldn't say this part because these people are probably listening and I don't want to get hate mail, but did you happen to see the couple that started dancing while you were playing Journey?
Oh, yes, I did see that.
They, let's just say you must have set the mood or something because we went from COVID CDC violation to borderline public exposure violations. I mean,
it was something. I was trying to focus on the keyboard for a little bit. Somebody was like, play Journey, and we immediately just went into Fatefully. And apparently that's their jam.
So my wife and I are sitting kind of towards the back, and the couple eclipsed us. So basically, instead of seeing the stage, we're staring directly at them. And she kind of looks at me and she's like, this is awkward. Where do we look? I'm like, I don't know.
Where do we look?
Well, I usually kick these things off by talking about how I discover or met each artist that comes on the show or every guest. And so for you, it's kind of funny. It's like a leapfrog situation. So my wife and I lived in College Station from 2013 through 2015. Mm-hmm. And you, I think, were in the Navasota area at that time, if I remember correctly. And so right before we left, I think it was when I started following you. I was like, I keep seeing this name pop out. I'm going to follow her on Instagram or whatever. And then we moved to Houston, and then you moved, and then eventually it's kind of like every time one of us moved, the other one went somewhere too. It was crazy.
Yeah, right after y'all moved, I think is when I moved to College Station. So I was there
Yeah.
not long after. And then I'm technically from Houston, I guess you'd say. At least that's where I popped out.
Oh, so when we went to Houston, you like replaced where we had been. So it's like a full circle.
Yeah.
What part of Houston?
Kind of the Spring area.
Oh, okay. So you're just close enough to go to Buc-ee's if you need to, but
I'm older than Buc-ee's, I think. I saw something the other day saying, "Tell your kids you're older than Google. They won't believe you. If you're born before, was it September of? I think it was '98. You're older than Google."
Oh, now I feel really old.
I guess
if you tell your kids that, then you can tell them, hey, I'm older than Google, therefore I know more than Google, so shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's be honest, nobody knows more than Google, and it's really creepy.
Yeah. I have one of those home pods at my house, and I'll just be talking to the cat, and Siri will chime into the conversation. I'm like, okay, this is too much.
So not only do we trade places or whatever that show is called, so we always move to where the other ones have been, but a lot of the people I followed or work with or played with, I started noticing you popping up in their pictures too, and I'm just like, do we just know all the same people or something? This is crazy. So kind of take us through what you've been working on lately, and then we'll dive into your whole story here in a minute. But quarantine, COVID, all that, I've repeated that on every episode, so I'm not even going to use the Q word anymore. But you've got this Woman Crush Wednesday series. You've put out the crazy single. Kind of take us through all of the stuff that's been keeping you busy.
Yeah, the year from hell, I swear. Yeah. It's not COVID, it's just hell. It's been... Yeah, exactly. It's been a very eventful year. Lots of very low lows and, just great highs too. I through Rich O'Toole, he's a buddy of mine, known Rich for quite a while, and I was moving to the San Antonio area, ended up moving to Lotus, and I saw Rich was the same day I was looking for apartments out here. He posted, I think it was on Instagram, that he was recording in Helotes, and I'm like, where are you recording? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And he's like, well, you got to meet Mac Damon. And I was like, okay. And so moved in, and a couple months later, I texted Mac, and I was like, hey, Richard told me about you, would love the chance to meet you. And he said, well, come over. He sent me the address and a little diagram of how to get back to the studio, because everybody knows the address is not what you want to follow. Anyway, went over there, and we hung out all day, and ended up riding till 2 a.m. And Stone Creek Sound has just been my home ever since then. They call me the mascot. That's the coin term for me is the mascot of the studio. I just had the chance to sit in on so many sessions and just be a part of things that, I mean, you can't gain that kind of experience unless you just have the opportunity to live there, basically. So they give me the opportunity to just be there whenever I want, and I love it, and it's like my family over there. And so ended up recording with Mac. We released an EP. Actually, the release show was about a year ago. In a couple days, it'll be a year ago.
Already?
And yeah,
Jeez.
I know. Yeah, so we've been working on some new stuff as well. Matt Zavala is a good buddy of mine, amazing producer, writer, and session player, and he's in from Nashville for a little while during all the craziness. Sorry, the road I'm going over is very bumpy. Anyways,
I didn't know if that was metaphorical for 2020 or if you were just taking a turn.
Yeah, that too. And so just being able to work with all of them and just have a music family. I mean, that's something that I've looked for so long. I mean, everybody in the music scene looks for that. They want a group they can connect with and who has their back. And it's been a huge blessing. And so we've been working on some new stuff, and we got this Women Crush Wednesdays coming up. The first episode is on the 28th. And Sam Watson is my first interview. She's somebody else I met through the studio. She's like a big sister to me, and absolutely love her. And so I'm really excited about that. And Luckenbach actually reached out when they heard about the series and asked if I would be willing to host it in the dance hall.
Wow.
So we are shooting that tomorrow. We already shot the first episode, but I was like, no, we're doing this again. We're going to Luckenbach. So we're gonna go there tomorrow and shoot that first episode. And I couldn't be more excited about it. It's just been on my heart for a long time with where the country music scene is at. I've ventured more into Americana over the years. I mean, they're kind of mutually exclusive. Americana artist is automatically country. So, anyway, just all the movements that are going on within that, just talking about giving the females a chance, because having been a part of the Texas country scene for so long and released singles and done the whole bit. I mean, there have been some amazing supportive people in the scene, don't get me wrong, but the scene as a whole has so much development to do, and they're so behind. Yeah. So behind. And
everything's bigger in Texas, including the amount of dudes on the bill.
Yes. It's very true. And when I say it, like, I mean it in a not a negative way towards anyone. It's just we all need to do better. Yeah. And I know personally, having been in the scene, my experience with other female artists, I'll never forget, I've been sharing this a lot lately. Brandy Carlisle was talking at the Americana Fest last September. And she said, people always wonder why girls don't support girls. She said, well, for every 100 spots, there's one spot for the female. And she's not about to just let some other girl take that spot. Like, this is her livelihood. This is what she does. It's her passion. And she's like, we can't support each other in this kind of an environment, and we've created it, and it's time for it to change. And I mean, I've been there where all of a sudden you're just competing with all the females, and it's such a toxic feeling. Yeah. It's just not how it's supposed to be. And so I've gotten so much more vocal about it. I used to bite my tongue and not say anything, but I feel like an old woman at this point. I just say whatever comes into my head. So I just want people to know, like, when I do say it, it's out of love and kindness and wanting to grow the scene. It's not pinning anybody down saying you did this or you did that. We're all guilty of it at some point. So I'm excited to just play a part in it. I'm excited about the artists that we're going to have. There's been some talk of maybe some pretty big name artists coming on the series. So yeah.
Well, so anyway, you'll never run out of material. I mean, there are so many underrated and undiscovered artists, male or female, but I mean, it's just like, even just focusing on the female artists, you're going to have an endless line of people. Yeah, exactly. And just so many of them whose stories, like, I really just want to share with the world, because I'm forever asking people at shows, because they'll be like, I don't know how, I hadn't come across you before, or can you play all these different songs, and it's always by a male artist. I'm like, can you name one female on the Texas country scene? And they get really quiet, and this look of shock comes over their face, and they realize, no, I have no idea. I'm like, it's nobody's fault but ours. And they just haven't been given the opportunity to, be open to those artists or hear their music or their stories. And so many of these women just blow me away. I mean, it's so humbling. Yeah, it is so humbling. I was kind of guilty of being one of those guys who, like, even to the mid 2000s, it was just like, I wasn't really into any female artists because I was still listening to Nashville at that point, and everything was, I hate my ex-boyfriend. I'm just like, okay, yeah. Well, we get it. You're pissed, but
you're hateful.
But like, I feel like country music had kind of lost that sound. I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with a Miranda style "I'm gonna burn your house down" song, but there was no more just good country songs coming out. And finally, when Texas kind of took more of the mainstay, and I was listening to more artists there, it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff not being played. And even in Texas, a lot of good songs are overshadowed. We've had a few on this podcast where I'm like, I'm glad we played some of the songs we did, because I'm like, these songs need to be out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many songs that I just think are a waste of people's time. And they do so well. Like, even watching the CMT Awards the other night, I mean, at some point I just lost interest.
You're braver than me for trying.
Yeah. I was like, I think there was going to be somebody on there that I wanted to see. I don't even know how it got started. Turned it on, and at some point I just walked out of the room until they said Rob Thomas was on there, and then I ran back in the room. That's my boy.
It's funny. I didn't throw this into the intro. I actually had this whole thing talked up that I was going to do, and I completely forgot. But talking about, more traditional country artists, and then when everybody started to sound the same, female artists were all just like burn your house down. Your sound, and it has taken me forever to figure this out, it's like a 3-part combination. I've always said Dolly and Alison Krauss, but I never could pinpoint that third voice. Mm-hmm. And please don't hang up when I say this, but I was like, dude, Britney Spears. Like, if you combined, and the Britney thing hit me this morning. Like, I'm getting out of bed, about to go to church. I was like, oh, I've got a podcast today. And somehow it just hit me. I'm like, dude, I've got the third voice.
That's awesome. See, I love that. I grew up on such a wide variety of music, and it makes me happy when like those different voices shine through, because I grew up on everything but country for the first 10 years of my life, and then I dove into the country thing. But I mean, disco and funk and 80s pop and all that's classic rock. That was my stuff growing up, still is. I mean, that's most of what I listen to.
Y'all, if you want to hear like Keith Whitley and Michael Jackson at the same show, go to one of Julia's shows. Because the first one I went to, you're like, hey, do we have any Rod Stewart fans? And I was like, I think the only song I know the words to are it's Do You Think I'm Sexy? I thought, there's no way I'm going to recommend that song. And then lo and behold, the next song that starts playing is that one.
He sits alone.
Yeah. Like, did we just become best friends? Yup.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, people ask me, they're like, what kind of music do you play at your shows? I'm like, well, it all sounds like me, but I'll play anything.
If it exists, it plays.
Yeah.
Tell us about the single Crazy that you put out. I mean, obviously you'd had that song out for a while, but you just put it out as a single, and tell me about that one.
So that one, we have 2 versions of that song, the one on the EP and the single version. We've gone through dozens of songs to try and figure out what we wanted to put on the EP, and we decided on 5, 4 originals and then the Tom Petty tune. And then halfway through the recording process, Mac and I just looked at each other, and we realized in that same moment one of the songs was just sticking out like a sore thumb. And it wasn't that it's not that it wasn't a good song. It's still probably one of my favorites. I like playing it at shows, but it just didn't fit with the rest of the songs on the EP. And so Mac had a full-blown panic attack. He went out on the porch for a little while, then he came back in. He was very calm, and I was like, so what you thinking? He said, Julia, I think you're going to write the perfect song to close out the EP. I was like, oh, great. Okay, I'll get to work on that. And it was only a couple of weeks after that, I was sitting on the floor of my apartment with my guitar, and it was a Tuesday evening, and wrote Crazy in about 20 or 25 minutes. And I just say it's by the grace of God, because when songs come to you that quickly, like it's nothing you could have done on your own. That's just something given to you at that point. And so that's probably one of my favorite songs I've written. Wow. And I love that song. It's definitely, I mean, that whole EP is pretty chill, laid back sound. Nothing super upbeat. But I'm fine with that. Everybody drills into you had to have the upbeat. I'm like, I want people to be able to listen to this EP and just get in a frame of mind. Like that's what it's designed for. And so anyway, recorded Crazy, and originally we just had acoustic and dobro. And then we wanted to make it a single, so we went back in, and I don't know if you know Hurtless. He's an incredible upright bass player. He played with Abbott for a long time. Oh, wow. And he came in and cut the upright on it, and we just added a bunch of different little things to give it more of a single style, and then cut down the time and everything. And of course, when I released that is right when COVID happened.
Of course.
So there wasn't a lot of radio touring going on around that time, but I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. There's only so much we can control. So
I hate that phrase. It is what it is. Like, it's one of my least favorite phrases, and I've probably used it more in 2020 than any other time.
Yeah. It's just one of those things you had to come to terms with the fact that you can only do what you can do. And I think that's a life lesson in so many ways, whether we're trying to have control or just trying to give too much or whatever it is. Just it is what it is. Like just have peace about it.
I think for me, it was kind of like, hey, I'm going to put out the redos of all my songs in summer 2020. You know, that's going to be the summer. What was it on Seinfeld? The summer of George. I'm like, this is going to be the summer of Garrett and my new music. And like, then you fast forward to about 2 weeks ago, I'm texting Gabe. I'm like, hey, how's February sound for having those finished?
Yep, it's thrown a big wrench in the plans, that's for sure. But I wouldn't trade it. I mean, I've gone through some really dark times this year. I battle with OCD, anxiety disorder, depression, the whole 9 yards. I mean, have my whole life, but it's given me so much perspective to have to fight through that within the circumstances, and I wouldn't trade it. I just look at it as it's more to write about, it's more to grow from, and I'm just one step closer to being where I'm supposed to end up. So
that's a very good outlook to have for it.
I don't have it every day, but
yeah. Yeah, I'm over here just like acting like, oh yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, dude, can relate.
Yeah.
Well, tell me real quick about the cover that you did for the Crazy Radio version, because when you posted it on Instagram, I was like, dude, she's in my hometown right now.
That's awesome. I had never been to Palo Duro Canyon. I was out there actually for a speaking engagement last year. Got to speak at the movie premiere called Angst, and it's about youth with anxiety and OCD, and Michael Phelps was in it, a bunch of different athletes and everything, and so I got to speak before that and perform I Won't Back Down, and so I was out there doing that, playing at a couple shows. I think Golden Light was one. I don't even remember where I played that week, but I was working with some people at the time. They were like, we got to go do a photo shoot at Palo Duro. And I was like, okay. And I had just seen the Grand Canyon for the first time, a year prior. Yeah. And so I think I should have done it the other way around. It's not that it wasn't beautiful. After seeing the Grand Canyon, I'm just like, okay, that was more than I could take in. But it was gorgeous. I loved it. And we had a really fun shoot out there. And have a lot of good photos from that. I just keep throwing out there at random times. But actually, the cover for the EP was taken on that same day, somewhere else in Palo Duro. So cool. that was a really fun shoot, just to be out in nature. That's kind of my thing anyway. So
Amarillo, I feel like it's pretty underrated of an area, but I always tell people I'm from there. But truthfully, I'm from Canyon, so now you know exactly where I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I'm gonna go for it.
It's beautiful. I'm sorry, my phone keeps buzzing. We have a group chat at the studio, and they're sending memes. We just send each other memes. That's all it is. I'm
in a group chat with a couple of people, and one of them is somebody that's at that studio quite a bit. And yeah, it's memes and stuff are constantly going off. It's always right before I'm walking into like a work meeting. I'm just like, oh man, I'm gonna start laughing, and this is not a laugh moment. Well, I'm going to play Crazy here so that everybody can hear it.
Awesome.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. You tuck yours beneath. We learn through the trials how opposites do and don't meet. We love and we fight, but we're always fighting for love. When nothing makes sense, that's the one thing that I'm sure of. I say too much, you say too little. Somewhere in the this life, searching for something to feel. We give up and give in to find out what's real. When you know, there's no way you could let this love go. When you got something this precious, you hold on with your very soul. I say too much, you say too little. Somewhere in the noise, we meet in the middle. It ain't always easy, but you love me like crazy. It's true. 'Cause baby, I know that I'm crazy in love with you. I have found that true love spills onto a page. It bleeds out of your heart more than you thought that you could take. I say too much, you say too little. Somewhere in the noise, we meet in the middle. It ain't always easy, but she loved me like crazy. It's true. Oh, don't say a word, 'cause I feel it, and you feel it too. 'Cause baby, I know that I'm crazy in love with you.
So take me through your whole story as a musician. I mean, you kind of touched on how you got to meet Mac and get introduced to Stone Creek and all that, but kind of take us to the beginning and your early influences and how you got your start and your first gigs.
Well, I started piano when I was 5, and the reason I started piano was I told my mom I wanted to play guitar, and she wanted me to take about 2 years of piano first to get the theory down, so that was the deal. And I say theory down because you can have it all together by 7. Anyway, so I ended up taking piano for 8 years. Had lots of different teachers, and I had a dirty little secret that I was really good at hiding. And finally, one of the teachers clued in, walked out of the class, went up to my mom and said, "Hey, do you need to know something about Julia?" And I was like, "Don't tell her, don't do it." And she's like, "What is it?" He said, "Well, she doesn't know how to read music." And she's like, "What do you mean?" She's been taking lessons for 8 years. She's playing what's on the page and she's looking at the page. She's like, "No, she's pretending that she's reading the page. She's playing it by ear." And my mom just looked at me, and I was so just, it was a very disappointed moment. But I'm thankful for it now because it trained my ear. And then I ended up going on to learn guitar and learn a lot of the theory over again when I was about 13. And I took lessons for a while until finally my teacher fired me as a student because I had too many shows. I was always missing the lesson to go to a show. And he was like, "Okay, we're done here." I've always loved music. I started writing when I was around 13, as far as songwriting goes, and I ended up seeing an artist perform when I was 15, just turned 15, and it just changed my world. There's been a couple times in my life I just felt like God spoke to me very clearly about something very specific, and that was one of them. And I have a journal entry that says, "Thank you, God, for showing me what I'm supposed to do." And it wasn't but maybe 6 months later I had my first show.
Wow.
And it's coming in April. It'll be 8 years. So yeah, it's I'm young, but I figured it out pretty quick there, and very blessed to have had that opportunity to not only be, introduced to different things my passions that I have in life at a young age, but to be given the opportunity to pursue them wholeheartedly at a young age. I mean, that's time you can't get back, and I'm just very thankful for that.
It's
And
pretty
so yeah,
incredible.
yeah, it's totally a God thing. I recorded in Tomball, at Castle Sound Labs for a while. Then I ended up, when I was about 17, recorded out in LA, at the Dawn Peak Studios, and met some of my dearest friends out there. And then it was kind of a combination of those two studios that we released the album through. An album I hope no one ever hears. That was before I was doing what my vocal coach told me to do. So
Can relate.
yeah, there's some great songs on there. They're honestly really good songs, but I'd like to cut them again and do a good job on the performance side. But so we released that album. Not long after that, I met Bill and Debbie Green. Went and recorded at BGM. We did an EP. Took some singles from that, and then finished out the album that released back in 2017, I believe. The full-length album. And then kept doing singles for a little bit, and then ended up winning that New Female Vocalist of the Year award. And I was so unhappy. I was like, this is great, and it was a pat on the back because I adore radio. I love radio. It just makes me so happy, and people I met through it, just incredible people, and just people who have the heart to share. And I just appreciate that so much. But the only reason it really was a pat on the back was because I knew that the votes were really centered around the radio people. Because so many people I could have 40,000 fans or 50,000, whatever, that they bought to to like their stuff, but they're not going in and voting. The people who have to listen to your stuff every day, like the radio people, they're voting. And so the fact that they voted and that happened, I mean, I'd worked so hard that year and the years prior to traveling all over the state, just visiting them and developing connections and making new friends, and just working as hard as I could. And so that was a big pat on the back in that aspect. But other than that, I hated my life. I hated what I was doing. And I was so scared to say it out loud, because when you do, people say, oh, well, you're not cut out for music.
Yeah.
And that wasn't it. It was just I wasn't on the right path within music. And going back to Rich O'Toole, I'd met Rich a couple years before, and he was living out in LA, in Hollywood, and I've been going out there a lot since I was a young teenager for acting stuff and music stuff. And he gave me the opportunity to go out there and basically rent his place while he was back over on this side of the country trying to tour around doing his thing. And so I lived out there for a little bit, and it was one of the greatest times of my life, if not the greatest time so far. Just really found myself in a lot of ways, and since then have stumbled across opportunities to develop my sound more and more, and get around like a core group of people who just support what I'm doing. And it's a rocky ride, but it's definitely a lot better than it used to be. I feel like I'm at least headed in a direction that I'm supposed to be, finding Americana and everything. So I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but that's it.
I love
that's
it.
The story.
I hate talking, so this is great.
When you said the whole story, I was like, okay.
I need a soundbite that's like, go on. I need a Rich O'Toole soundbite. Because he's probably been name dropped or mentioned on this podcast by more people. I have a Stephen James soundbite. Oh, yeah. And I thought, Rich is the one getting all the name drops recently. I should probably put one of those in here.
He is something else. My goodness. He is, it's funny living out in Hollywood. This is something not many people know, but online I refer to him as my cousin all the time. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
And we're not actually cousins, but in order for me to go and rent out his place when I was there, I had to be a relative. And so I guess spur of the moment, the lady asked him something and he said like we were related or something. And she ended up asking me, and I was like, "Yeah, we're cousins." And so Rich will forever be my cousin now.
I love it. I always wondered because y'all would always put it like in quotation marks or something. I was like, what in the
Yeah.
world is that about?
Yeah, we're cousins by necessity. He's given me some of the best advice, and just I admire him so much. His business savvy, his marketing strategies, his everything that he does, his music, his writing. Just he is ahead of the game at all times. And in fact, he's the one who got me to get on Instagram years ago.
Oh, nice.
I didn't have Instagram. I was in Abilene. I was in JB Cloud. I was in the station, and he was like, that's actually how I ended up talking to Rich again. So this was, dang, I don't even know how many years ago this was. And he's like, Rich is the king of Instagram. And you're like, you got to talk to Rich about this. And so Rich talked me into it. And now Instagram's my favorite thing. I've got over 800 posts or something crazy now. So
yeah. When I had him on here for episode 14, we talked about his Twitter haters. Just like,
yes.
It was funny. Last time I saw him, I think it was the last time I saw him in person. We're at this like Texas Independence Day brunch, and they bring out this like phenomenal food. It's like in the Heights in Houston, so it's like super fancy or whatever. Steven's up there playing, and I forgot what it was. Some like Southern Belgian waffle or whatever, with like cornbread and all this fancy stuff on it. So I just like dig into it, and Rich sits there. He's just looking at me, shaking his head. He goes, "Dude, you got to take a picture for Instagram." I'm like, I'm sitting next to Rich. I told I didn't think of that.
Oh, he's the king of food. My goodness. We were, Mac and Gabe and I went up to visit him for his birthday in Nashville last summer. And we went out to eat on his birthday. And, you know, I'm so easygoing. I'm very Southern. It's like, yeah, this is great. Thanks. Oh, you don't have this? Oh, that's cool. And he's like, they have a Michelin star. He's like, I'm going to grill them. And he did. I never seen anything like it. I was just like, dude, like, this is what you should be doing. Forget music. You need a food critic.
That cracked me up. So at that point, I'd met Rich, I'd met Vanessa. I hadn't met you or Mac yet. And I'm following like everyone's Instagram stories are separate, but all in the same place. Like everybody was in Nashville that weekend, and I was just cracking up at some of the stuff y'all were posting. And then I met Mac like a couple weeks later. And I was like, I mentioned to him, I was like, dude, I saw the video of Rich singing Brooks and Dunn in that bar or whatever. And Mac just like cracks up laughing.
It was amazing. I'm trying to remember. I think it's Landon Tice was the guy singing the band that was there that day. And I'll never forget that. That was one of the most amusing things I've ever seen. And to this day, anytime that song, Born to Love Again, I'm like, oh God. Like, this is Rich's song. It was something else. But he just kind of went up there. He acted like he didn't really sing or anything, but he really wanted to sing that song. And the next thing you know, all the girls around him, and he's like just rocking out like a rock star. And Landon's just staring at him like, what is happening? Strumming the guitar. It was great. It was fantastic. That was a very, very fun trip. I learned a lot about, I've been going back and forth to Nashville for a long time, but I never liked it. And I realized the issue was you had to be around the right people, and that has to be true for wherever you go, especially in a place like that where it's so saturated and there's so much pressure to just be the best at everything, which is impossible. But to be around the right people, like, it changes everything.
That's what I've been asked before. It's like, would you go to Nashville? I'm like, for a weekend? Yeah. For my career? No. Like, I can't. Yeah. Austin's tough enough.
Yeah. It's, things have become so commercialized.
Yeah.
And we don't have to get into all of that. I have amazing friends out in Nashville and a lot of people that I adore, but you just have to be around those right people wherever you go. And that's why I've stayed in San Antonio so long. I have no other reason to be here. There's probably a lot more convenient places I could live, but especially with everything going on now, I'm like, I just want to be with my people and work on stuff and give it time to just cultivate it and not push anything before it's time, because I mean, everything's shut down anyway.
Yeah, true. What brought you to San Antonio originally?
If I'm honest, a relationship.
Hey, that happens.
Yeah, I was living in College Station. Also, I wanted to get the hell out of College Station. Oh my gosh! Once again, some of the greatest people I know live in that town too. But it's not.
I'll back you up so that you don't get any hate here. I'm an Aggie diehard, and I love like College Station is my number 2 favorite town on the planet. But it was like the traffic on Texas Avenue alone was enough for me to be like, you know what? It's time. I'm done.
Exactly. Well, and then moving there and the couple years I was there, just every few months, it would take you 10 more minutes just to get outside of town. I'm like, what? This is crazy. The infrastructure wasn't there.
We lived on Welborn Road or like right off of Welborn and Southwest Parkway. And when we moved there in 2013, it was kind of the edge of town. I mean, yeah, you still had Rock Prairie and everything, but you were pretty much the last checkpoint before Rock Prairie, and that was the edge of town. And then by the time we left, it was kind of like, okay, so we're halfway across town.
Yeah, it just gets worse and worse. We actually lived pretty close to each other because I lived over by the barracks.
Ah, small world.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. But I was ready to get out of there, needed a change of scenery, and I'd recorded in San Antonio so much and really loved the area. And the guy I was with at the time was moving back here for work. And it's like, well, I want to get away. And the relationship was going well. And I thought I'll just move closer to that area. And my parents moved out to Fredericksburg, so I'd be closer to them too.
Oh, cool.
It just made sense. But I still love and respect that dude to death, but we just we're too different for each other, as it is with most musicians. There's not many people who can put up with us. So anyway, we went our separate ways back in August of last year. But I mean, at that point, this was already my home with the studio and everything, and I wasn't about to go anywhere. So my cat had just come up the month before. I mean, I was getting established. So anyway, I've been very thankful to be here, and honestly, it's the only reason I'm still here is just to be around those people for a while longer and just soak it in, you know.
There are some great folks down there. Of course, the fact that I talk to a lot of y'all all the time, I think people now think I live down there, and I'm like, no, dude, I'm like 3 hours away because I put an ad out because I'm looking for a guitar player, and I had 3 takers, and then I go look at their info. I'm like, you live in San Antonio. I was like, I said Temple area. So, yeah. And then I got invited to be like in a rap video this weekend, and I had to tell them, I was like, hey, I don't live there. But yeah,
that's funny you bring that up. That's been a very new thing in my life.
You're a rapper now?
Maybe, kind of. CeeLo Jordan is just one of my dearest friends. Love him to death, and he is an incredible rapper, amazing producer, photographer, videographer. He does it all. A lot of ers there. So tripping over my words. And so CeeLo had a lock-in at the studio a couple months ago, with a bunch of rappers and producers from the San Antonio area. I mean, they were from all over, but quite a few of them from here. And it was incredible. Nothing has ever been done like that in San Antonio. And so they were at the studio, and I was able to be there and be in that environment and get to know the artists. And CeeLo kept asking my input. I'm like, CeeLo, I'm a country singer. Like, why are you asking me? And he's like, well, you're a musician and a lyricist. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And next thing I know, I was in the vocal booth. And that was nerve-wracking. I'd written a verse, and he was like, do it. And I was like, okay. And there's, 7 professional rappers in the in the room listening to me while I'm in the booth, and I've never been so nervous, my goodness. But ended up jumping on a bunch of tracks, just doing a lot of soulful, like, harmonies in the background, and just really cool stuff. And that was very eye-opening, because you put yourself in a box and you tell yourself, this is what I can do, and before you know it, you've made the box smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And CeeLo just gave me the opportunity to see that my box was way too small that I'd made, and he just ripped the ceiling off of it and gave me the opportunity to try something new, and I loved it. I thought it was a blast. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, so yeah, there's that.
I'm just gonna like clip that audio and use it as my default answer, because every time someone tells me, dude, you're like half country songs or half rock songs, and it's like it's always somebody that likes one more than the other, and they're like, can you just like pick one? I'm just like, how about no?
Growing up with so many influences and still to this day having so many influences, it doesn't make sense to limit yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you look at what AJ Gale did with his last song. I mean, he told me in a text, he's like, dude, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this one, but I don't care. And it was basically, it wasn't even remotely country. He put out like a pop, kind of hip hop sounding song, and he got, I forgot how many follows and ads, and he got on all these like playlists in California and stuff. I mean, it helped him way more than anything else. Like I don't think he got much backlash. And so I was kind of like, dude, you know what? You went for it. That was kind of a Hail Mary throw, but props to you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good. You get to know yourself as an artist. You get to connect with more people. I mean, what more could we ask for than to be able to connect with more people through our music? So, can
you imagine doing music without the people? I mean, it's. You do meet a lot of turds out there on the scene, but at the same time, it's like it's the friends you make that keep you doing it.
Yeah, and even my thing, I always say that I love people way more than I love music. I mean, it's not that I don't love music, but the day that I start loving it more than people, then I'm gonna need to take a break, because that's just not how I operate. I'm a people person. I like connecting with people, and at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about the people you play for, and so the people make it for me. I wouldn't do music. I wouldn't put up with all this shit.
Dude, we gotta pick up the pace. I think that's only the second bleep I've got to use. Like we've got 40. Okay. We've got 40 more to go here.
Yeah, well, we'll get on a certain subject.
There we go.
Yeah.
That kind of goes in line with one thing that we talked about in the previous episode when Vanessa was on here. We were kind of like, it was kind of cool when they had that virtual concert recently, because instead of actually having to worry about playing, our concert happened without us being on a stage, and we actually got to talk to people and each other, and it was more. Yeah. It was almost more fun that way. It's like, okay, we get to be a part of the crowd without being up there and screwing up, which, by the way, I liked your segment. I wish you could have been on there with us.
I felt so bad. I had a bunch of stuff going on that night, and I wasn't able to jump on there, but Vanessa was cluing me in or telling me about all the funny stuff that had gone on.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate so much you asking me to be a part of it. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
I don't think most of the artists actually got to see it till later. It was such a nerve. Like the prep for it, though, was so nerve-wracking, because like y'all had both done the studio session, and whenever I got those videos, the quality was so high, and that's a compliment, that it kind of crashed the upload process.
Oh,
and
no.
It froze at 98% and crashed. And so I had one work day to head it, but the Wi-Fi at my workplace was so slow that it took all day to upload, and it honestly didn't finish rendering until an hour before it was supposed to premiere.
Oh, that's terrible.
And I'm sitting there just like, my anxiety was sky high into outer space. I was freaking out, but it went great.
Yeah, I mean, just right there at the end.
Yeah,
it came through. That's how God's timing works.
Yeah, God's got some funny timing though at some of my other shows. The last one I played here in Temple, and we delayed the show an hour and a half because nobody was coming because there was a cover, and then. As soon as they took the cover out, like they stopped collecting at the door, a flood of people came in. I'm like, this is really cool. I've got a packed room of people, but there's no cover anymore. So it was a really fun $12 to make, but I'm just glad people were there.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Well, I had one thing written here for your music career, and I'm going to throw it in because we've touched on this, and I'm going to need a broom to sweep up all the names that have been dropped for this guy. But you actually sang on several of Rich's songs. I know you did the California song with Vanessa recently. Tell us what that was like.
Oh, I love Rich's music. I was even sharing yesterday his cover of Coke that he did. I don't even know how many years ago that was. That's always my answer. I don't know when that was. That was really neat, just to be able to listen to his music for so long and known him, and then jump in there and sing on that song. And California is so important to me, just personally. And so, of all songs to jump in on with harmonies, that was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, when he released that, we were listening to it in the car, and I told Hannah, I was like, "Hey, we got to turn this up." I was like, "I think I know everybody that's on this song." I was like, I don't get to say that very often, so I was like, "All right, crank it."
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. I love being able to create something with people that you know, and it's not like, oh, we'll send this to this random guy and he'll play this part or sing this part or whatever. It's like we can all do it ourselves. So.
Well, I'm going to throw another song in here, and this one is my pick. So when I first got to see one of your shows, I was like, okay, if she asks for a recommendation, I'm going to say Who I Wanted You to Be. And as I'm walking up, you were already playing it. I was like, well, crap, I can't do that one. So I'm going to throw that one in here. Although I'm going to make a quick note. So you were talking about playing by ear earlier. I still only play by ear. Don't read it. If you say, hey, play an A or whatever, I'm just going to have to like fiddle to find it. But when I do bass practice, I'll play my songs and I'll throw just a bunch of random people's songs off a playlist and practice. And earlier today, I was actually practicing to, I think it was Never Going Back There Again. I was like, this song's legit. Yeah. So that one made the practice list today.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even listened to that song in a minute. That's a lot of people think that song's about a relationship. It's about a recording experience.
Oh, that's awesome. I love when people completely misinterpret a song because then you just kind of laugh at them and be like, that's right.
Yep. I'll kind of disguise some things as, just in terms that most people can relate with. Like, there's not many people who are like, yeah, I had a bad recording experience once too. It's not as common to go through that. So just making it relatable. But I love that song.
You could actually dedicate that one to bad venues you've had to play at and be like, I'm never going back there again.
There you go. That's a good idea. I'll always close the show with it. I'm like, well, this sucked. I'll see y'all down the road.
Well, you know what? Now that we've talked about it this much, I'm going to just call an audible. I'm going to play that song instead.
Okay. And I haven't even heard it in a while. That's gonna be...
so it's going to be like new for all of us.
Yes. It probably will make me very uncomfortable because my voice has even changed since then. But yeah, it's a good song.
Well, we'll see what everyone thinks of it here. Never Going Back There Again.
I believe the lies, but the devil is disguised as a pretty face. A pretty face. Caught up in romance, and you just let me dance in your masquerade. Your masquerade. But when I opened up my eyes, I saw the truth. And I'm not gonna let myself be used. I'm never going back there again. No more you, no more us, this is the end. It wasn't real, it wasn't love, so why would I pretend? I'm never going back there again. That sweet southern smile was distracting for a while, and that's okay. That's okay. We stared up at the stars and talked about guitars. It was the little things, all those little things. But when I opened up my eyes, I saw the truth. It made me believe it was meant to be, so shame on you. I'm never going back there again. No more you, no more us, this is the end. It wasn't real, it wasn't love, so why would I pretend? I'm never going back there again. No more you, no more us, so
So that song obviously has a funny backstory. Which of your songs would you say have the most meaningful backstories to you?
Oh goodness. Meaningful backstories? I'd have to think about that
or anything you like.
I've got a song. I was telling somebody about this the other day. I've got a song on my first album. It was all itty bitty and such about a bird. It's called Ivory, but nobody knows that it's about a bird. I mean, if you once you know, like you can, it makes even more sense. But there's so many figurative things in there. At least you think they're figurative, and you don't realize they're actually literal. And I grew up on a farm. We had a bunch of chickens, and one day in our chicken coop, we had a white pigeon that had like little bands on her legs, and she kept trying to fly, and one of her wings got injured. And so she lived in the chicken coop in the barn for months and months, and I'd go out there and feed her, and she was like a little ghost or something. You go in there and call her, and she wouldn't be there, and then all of a sudden you turn around, and she'd look at you and start cooing, and just really cool. And then one day she was just gone when it got cold. And so this was my little country girl experiences that I wrote about. And so nobody knows that song's about a bird. Not that anybody hears that song anymore, because heaven forbid. But I try to hide all those at this point.
I love those cryptic ones. Like, so, and I think you and I were talking about this song a couple weeks ago, but Danny doesn't know. After I recorded that one with Gabe and I put it out, it was 3 songs mixed into one. And so
really?
it was kind of a Venn diagram. I mean, all the stories in it were related, but I knew what song I wanted to write. I started writing it. Then I was like, no, scratch that. I'm going to write it and go another direction. And then I was kind of like, but I liked the first one. And so then I had like a whole other, like the story took a turn. I'm like, well, I'm just going to try to mix them. And if anyone ever figures out the full story without it being explained, I mean, free guest list tickets, whatever, when I make it big someday. But I was just like, no. So RJ Paxton texted me a couple weeks ago. He's like, dude, song's been out a year. It's a banger. I love it, but I can't tell what the hell it's about. I said, that's the point.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's interesting as writers. I mean, there's sometimes I will start writing a song and I am just hell-bent on it being about what happened. And then there's sometimes you just take inspiration and you just run with it and becomes something you never knew it would be. So there's some songs that take on a life of their own. There's some, I mean, that's a good frame of mind to be in, is to just let the song write itself wherever it needs to go. But there's sometimes, you know, if something's really sentimental, especially, you just want to stick with what actually happened, if it's a story song or how you actually felt about it or whatever. But it's a good song. I like the mashup. That's awesome.
Well, speaking of mashups, I almost referred your EP, one of your EPs, the wrong way earlier, because I was thinking of your song Heartfelt, and I almost said Heartless Romantic instead of Hopeless Romantic. I was like, you're a heartless romantic. I was like, oh gosh, that's not what it's called.
Well, everybody always calls Halfway Here the EP title Halfway Home.
Oh no, we were talking about that on the last episode, because I was wearing the shirt that you gave me at that last show that said that's like Halfway Here, and I was talking to Vanessa about her song Halfway There. And we were like, wait a second. There's like an overlap here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember Mac and I. This is how Mac operates with me, because he knows how scatterbrained I am. We're both very scatterbrained, and we have to help each other. But we were in the car. I think we just got something to eat, and he was about to drop me off. And we pulled into my apartment, and he started just circling around the whole apartment over and over. And he was like, I'm not letting you out of the car till you tell me what the EP title is. And I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, I'm not kidding you. He's like, I need to know now. And I was like, oh gosh. And so we drove around for a long time, and I said Halfway Here, and he's like, yep, that's it. I was like, okay. Can I get out now?
That's perfect.
Yep.
That is a lot like in Sweet Child of Mine on that last part. It only happened because they kind of had this instrumental outro and they had no idea what to write on it. And so the producers are like, well, where do we go now? And they're like, hey, just write that down. We'll just sing that over and over again.
Exactly. Or we have Otis Redding sitting on the dock of the bay. The whistle part is, I mean, he ended up passing, but they didn't have anything to put in it yet, so it's the whistle part, but that's the one thing from that song that everybody knows.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I can't whistle, so.
I'm very hit or miss. I have a very limited range on it, but I couldn't whistle as a kid. That was only like a few years ago. It finally happened, and I was like, "What I do?"
When I grew up, I want to whistle.
Life goals, people. That's where my music career is. Okay, I've achieved whistling.
I'm like, if I could sing, I should be able to whistle. Seems like it should be easy, but no, it's not.
One thing that, while I'm over here, like, I know how to whistle. One thing that you've done that I haven't gotten to do is be a part of multiple music video projects. We actually talked on the last episode about how you were part of the Miss Texas and the background of the, I don't know if you were in it, but I remember you were like a part of the skating video that took place about that time. So tell me about, your experience with that, being in other people's videos. And also you did I Won't Back Down and Don't Close Your Eyes. And I know that there were some cool stories behind that.
Vanessa, she used to be big into ice skating. I'm a rollerblader, so but I had a show that evening, so I wasn't able to make it out to the shoot, but she was like, "Will you please go with me to the rink and just make sure that I'm not going to make a fool of myself tonight?" And of course she's out there doing all the crazy pretty shit. I was trying to catch myself. She looks incredible, and I'm just like, "Oh yeah, you're afraid you're gonna fall over or fall down." I was like, "You're skating like you're a figure skater. Like, I think you'll be fine." And meanwhile, I'm over there trying to skate like a rollerblader, and that just doesn't work. But yeah, that video was really cool how it turned out. I had a show that evening, so I wasn't able to make it, but ended up being in another video of hers that hasn't released. I don't know when it's releasing. I have to ask her about that. That one, and then Won't Back Down. I really am happy with how that video turned out. Mac and I, we just give each other really big ideas that are really hard to achieve, but somehow we make it happen. So we blacked out half of the studio with paper. It's a big rolls of just black paper just up and down the walls, duct taped all over the place, and had a light hanging in the very center of the room over the piano. And then we built those candle stands from scratch. Matt came up with a design for them, and earlier that day, I mean, I was covered in painting those before the shoot, painting those candle stands to make them look like they were just kind of hovering. And it was a really neat shoot. The hardest part about it wasn't anything to do with the setup. I had gotten this dress at a thrift store, one of my favorite thrift stores, and happens to be in downtown San Antonio. And this is like a vintage dress, and they used to make things to where they didn't stretch. It was just like you either fit or you don't. And it was a little tight around my ribs, and I honestly could barely breathe for most of that shoot. And we kept having to take breaks, and somebody would unzip it, and I'd fall on the ground. And they'd zip me back up, and I'd get back in front of the piano, and we'd start again. And that was brutal. It was brutal. So
you would never know by watching the video, but I love the behind the scenes info you get here.
Yeah. Oh, and then it was great too, because that song, we recorded it, I believe I want to say we recorded it in B, but I usually play it in C at shows on piano. I just like singing higher live. It's nice to get those rich tones when you're in the vocal booth, but after doing 3 hours worth of a show, it's nice to be able to kind of default to my normal range. And so I got on the piano and they started playing the song, because this was the first song I ever didn't sing live in a video. And so they started playing the song that I could lip sync to it. And then I realized this isn't going to work, because I love playing this in C, and that's not what this song is anymore. And Gabe ran into the mixing room, and he pitched it up a little bit and to bump it up to C, and played it over the speaker, and we were good to go. That actually led to some issues this past week trying to upload it. Somehow I ended up with a version with a pitched vocal, and I sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
And of course, I'd had it up for several hours before I noticed it. I called Mac immediately. I was like, please tell me I'm like either something's wrong with this or I'm just making it up. Like, I don't know what's happening. He was like, something is dead wrong. I don't even know how that happened. I don't know how I ended up with that version because it doesn't exist. Mac was like, this version never existed. Like,
Yeah.
we just did it so you could play it in a key that you were comfortable with since you were going to have to sing it all night. And I was like, well, I have it somehow.
That happened last week. So when I was editing Vanessa's episode, that happened because we put the Castaway video in there. But
Yeah.
I didn't want to bug her or Mac or anybody for the actual video file. So I was like, oh, I'll just rip it off YouTube like some sort of troll. And I did. And for some reason, when you do that and try to import the file, it changed the pitch. Like it cranked it way up. And I was like, I don't think she sang it this high. I don't think it sounded weird. And so I tried to dub it over. I imported the actual audio file. And when I put the MP3 on there, it was 2 different keys. And when I hit play, it was the most nightmare sounding song. And so finally I got the original video file. I was like, I hate to bug you, but that's going to need to happen.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I guess it compressed it. It sounded like it compressed a chipmunk. It was it was bad.
It's crazy what Gabe's able to do in there, though, because I won't name the song because I don't want everyone to just like listen for it when it comes out. But on one of the ones I redid, back when I first recorded the song, it was like 2015 or 2016, had no clue how to sing yet. And so I sang it way lower back then. And so when I came back to the studio and I tried to do it, we weren't even halfway through the first verse. And I told him, I was like, Gabe, I can't hit this low note anymore. Like, I don't know what to do. And so he's like, hey, come in here. He totally changed the pitch. And I think he only bumped it a half step, made a world of difference. But I was kind of like, how can you do that without distorting it? And he's just like, a wizard, but
a wizard. He is a wizard.
Stone Creek, shout out. They got magic.
Yes, they do. They do. Matt calls us unicorns. We all bring some kind of color of the rainbow to the unicorn tribe. All the different personalities crack me up. Gabe has been one of my best friends for quite a while now, and I mean, we get on each other's nerves to no end, but we're like siblings or something, but he's just one of my best friends, and I love that kid. He's the best.
Well, so before some of these videos you put out, because I know one of them, I think you had mentioned, I don't remember which show you were talking about, but I think you were talking about how, I think it was a Caldwell that you filmed at, the old post office. Yeah.
I've been singing at the old post office for a long time, and always loved that venue. The acoustics are incredible, and I sang there several years ago. Jumped up with a friend of mine who actually got to jump up with me this past week at a show and sing the same song, Chris Crow. And he's one of the most talented vocalists that I've ever encountered. He just has a voice that will fill a room. And so in a room like that, with such great acoustics, it's phenomenal. And so wanted to go back there and shoot part of the video there. We shot some of the videos there, some of that haven't even been released. I'm so picky. So we shot some of the footage there, and then we also did some of it at the art gallery in Navasota, where I'm from. And I was happy with how many of them turned out. Not happy with some of them. It had nothing to do with anybody but me. But when you have a live performance like that, when you're being filmed and doing all that, I mean, you just have to work with the dynamics of the room and what's going on and what your voice is doing that day. And some of them I just didn't feel like they were up to par, and I just kicked them out of the of the group. But yeah, the old post office is a great place. If you ever get to go see a show there, anybody listening who just loves live music, the acoustics are insane. And they've done a lot of remodels and renovations the past couple of years. And it actually is an old post office. So a lot of history. Really, really cool place.
Well, I will play a music video song here. You pick which one we do.
Oh, boy. I mean, the Tom Petty song.
Awesome. All right. I won't back down.
Well, I won't back down. got just one life in a world that keeps on pushing me around, but I stand my ground and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground and I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
All right, so upcoming projects, plans. I'm going to say that again because I totally said that funny. Upcoming projects, plans, and goals. I'm going to kick this off with something we were kind of laughing about this past week in a text. On the last episode, I don't know why I can't speak English anymore. On the last episode, we talked about this tweet that I had like a year ago or something, where somebody was like, put an all-star band together on Twitter. And of course, everyone's doing like old school rock bands. And I was like, oh, I'd put these songwriters I know. And what it ended up being was like the original tweet. I think I had like AJ Gell on guitar, me on bass, Vanessa singing. And I threw you in there to be like the co-lead singer and the piano player. And so on the last episode, we were like, would we get canceled? Because I'm sure somebody would say something. And I liked your idea the other day. It's like, well, what would it be that gets us kicked out?
Yeah. What would each person say?
I just think it's because we're not woke enough, but I'll probably get my podcast will get canceled because I said that.
Well, we have no control over our lives anymore.
Right. I don't know that. I think a bunch of super groups may have to happen at some point because with all the venues getting shut down, it's like we were already an oversaturated scene before. And now it's like, well, do we all have to start picking teams like an elementary gym or what? Like, yeah.
Yep. It's just everything has gotten way too political. I'm like, just shut up and sing a damn song. My goodness. I love Dolly Parton. I've watched this interview so many times. Just this one part where he really wants to know something about her politics. And she's like, I'm not going to talk about that. And he keeps drilling her. And she's like, finally, she's like, I told you I was not going to talk about it. And she's just like, I sing, leave me alone. And I was like, thank you. Finally, somebody doesn't feel like they have to just spout their opinion all the time, you know? Like, and that's why Dolly Parton's who she is. They made a whole podcast, Dolly Parton's America. Great podcast talking about how everybody can come together no matter their religion, background, political views, race, whatever. It does not matter. Like, they will go to a Dolly Parton concert and be in love with Dolly Parton. And what is that? And what does she have that we're missing so much of? And I adore Dolly. So I try to stay away from all the politics.
Smart.
I mean, yeah. This has gotten to be too much. Well, I mean, it got to be too much a long time ago now. We're just being stupid. So.
Oh, yeah. I have my preferences, but regardless of how things shake out in November, I'm just ready for December. I'm just like,
right.
I may not like the winner. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say no matter who wins, I won't like the winner. But I'm just ready for my neighborhood to not be plastered in everybody's signs because, or trucks and boats and everything. I'm like, let's just be cool. I like the was it El Arroyo, the place in Austin that has the signs out front. They had one that was like, what if we just don't have a president, but we all promise to be cool? It's like,
yeah.
I can get behind that.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Or Dolly. I would vote for Dolly.
Dolly for Prez. So speaking of locations, I know I mentioned a restaurant. That's not a venue, but what are some of your favorite venues and towns to perform?
I mean, I love playing Luckenbach. That's always a fantastic place to play. I've grown up at Luckenbach, and it just feels like coming home when I play there. Trying to think. I mean, there's some venues that are some of my fans' favorites that they'll come to, and I just enjoy it the most when I've got a bunch of people out there that I know or have followed me through the years and get to connect with them. And I mean, for me, it's less about the venue and more about the people.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. You know, everybody on here talks about Green Hall. And I'm like, that'd be cool, but I wouldn't want to play it if it was empty, you know?
Yeah.
I'll take I'd play a Chuck E. Cheese if it was packed full of people that wanted to see me. I think they got rid of the like electronic animals they used to have. I was bummed to hear that. I was like, look, I know musicians are losing gigs, but you don't have to fire the mechanical ones too. Like, it's going too far.
Oh my gosh. I wonder where all those are now if they got rid of them. Like,
dude, that's like a creepy thought. Because like, I don't know if you ever did this when you were little. I think back to when I was like 3 or 4, they still had the curtain that would close in front of them. And if you were brave and you knew you were going to get nightmares from it, you like walk up and you kind of like peek under the curtain. And I'll never forget when I was 3 years old in Lincoln, Nebraska, vivid as day. I peeked under there and I just remember that the purple gorilla was staring down at me. And I mean, I was mortified.
No. That's amazing.
Now I'm like 32 years old. And I'm going to have nightmares again tonight just from thinking of it.
The purple gorilla. Yeah, I wonder where all those animatronic animals are.
So my wife likes researching like nostalgic things. She also loves crime junkie podcast type things. So I guarantee when I tell her about this, she's gonna start Googling it, and I probably am too. I will let you know what I find out. Okay, perfect. Well, actually, I need a guitar player for my band. I might go buy one. So, you'll never mess up. Right. So what are some of the I can't, I unlearned English as a language during that last music break. Here we go again. What can we expect from you next? And the reason I said that a minute ago is because my next question is, where can people find your music? And I started to read one instead of the other. But yeah, so what are some of your upcoming plans? Well, keep an eye out for Women Crush Wednesdays. I am shocked with how much that's taking off. I really am looking forward to being able to interview all these women and tell their stories. And I mean, some women I never thought I'd have the chance to talk to. And so that should be really cool, as long as it keeps going in a good direction. Just anybody who's willing to support it, I promise it's a good cause. We're not trying to put anybody down. We're just trying to lift people up who have needed to be lifted up for a long time and deserve to be. And so that's a big thing. We're also starting another interview series. It's actually going to be hosted at the studio. That's a little bit later on down the road. This is kind of taking priority right now. Also recording some new material, hopefully be released in the next several months. Just performing all over the place. I got more shows than I know what to do with. So yeah, just all sorts of really good things. I mean, I think of 2020 as like a fire. It burns everything down and destroys everything, but it makes the soil so much richer, and so good things are coming out of it. So, well, and I know you posted about this the other day, but it is true. One thing you said, you had a lot of momentum going into when COVID hit, and I'm hoping that a lot of people that built that momentum up, it'll pick right back up once things start to kind of open back up. Lord willing, I think that momentum will come right back. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I can sense it already, and it's hills and valleys. So we'll see what happens next. It's a ride. Well, for anyone who is not following you yet and just now hearing about you, where should they follow you? Where can they find your music and your shows and things like that?
If you go to juliahatfield.com, you can get links to everything. But if you're just wanting to go straight to socials or streaming, Julia Hatfield Music, it's Julia, and then Hatfield like Hatfields and McCoys. And yes, that is my real name. Before anybody out there is like, oh, like Hatfields and McCoys, that's me. Check it out on Instagram. Instagram's my favorite. I mean, I got Facebook and all the things, but Instagram and Facebook are my two main ones, and then Spotify and Apple Music, wherever you want to check it out. There's some streaming services that still have that first album. Please stay as far away as possible from those streaming services.
I'm adding that to my Chuck E. Cheese research. Like, go find the first album.
Oh no! Going back to Matt Zavala, the other day I came across that first album, a hard copy. He's got it up on his desk. Oh no! Oh, it's terrible. It's honestly though, if you can listen to it through a lens of songwriting specifically, it's a really good album. It's just my voice that bothers me so much. There's even a song. There's even a song on there that was a semi-finalist in the International Songwriting Competition in the teen category when I was like 15.
Oh wow!
So I mean, there's some really good songs on there. I'd like to re-record some of them, but usually on to the next thing instead of backtracking.
Yeah.
I got too many ideas to go back.
It's a blessing and a curse. It's like to have that kind of a creative mind, but then it's like, well, when am I going to do all this?
Yeah.
And pay for it.
How am I going to afford it? Yeah.
So I have a song break written in here. I think I'm going to do Texas Ain't Texas Without You. And I believe this is the one y'all like talk on the recording right before it starts.
Yeah.
Who is that?
That's Billy O'Rourke. He's a part of the David Lee Garza band, and I wrote most of that album with Billy. And just, he's an incredible human being, amazing writer and guitar player. But for that song, I was like, I wanted to sound like we're in the writing session when we recorded this. Just make it as raw and organic as we can, because to me, that's when a song is the best that it can be, is right after it's born, just show them what it is before you fill it with a bunch of instruments and just try to get it to that vulnerable state and record it quick enough that we can keep it. So yeah, anyway, I was really happy with that, how that turned out, because to me, it showcased the most special part of the writing process, just right after you write it, before it's untouched.
I think my favorite part, somebody says something like, that's never going to work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, make sure you listen through the end. I'm trying to think of what Billy says. He says, pretty country, right? I was like, yeah, it'll never work. Yep.
Well, we'll let everybody listen for that right here.
You try that one we've been working on?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Deep in the heart of lonesome Amarillo, I found your note and cried the whole night through.
Same old song and story. A cowboy needs his freedom.
Texas ain't Texas without you. I heard that you were singing your songs in Navasota. You drove 'em wild, you're good at what you do.
Blame it on the Brazos or the memories we made in Mason.
Texas ain't Texas without you. Between the deserts, pines,
in the back of every ballroom.
You're there in every town that I pass through.
I could drive 1,000 highways,
but I can't outrun the truth. Texas ain't Texas without you. I packed my bags for Port Aransas, played a show in Corpus, broke down in Matagorda, and just stared out at the blue.
And I wondered in Waxahachie if you felt the way I do.
Texas ain't Texas without you. Between the deserts, ponds, and rivers,
In the back of every ballroom.
you're there in every town that I pass through.
I could drive 1,000,000 highways,
But I can't outrun the truth. Texas ain't Texas without you. Texas ain't Texas without you.
You think?
Yeah,
It's too country, right?
it'll never work.
All right, so for the big three questions, if you're ready, the first one, if you could collaborate with anyone out there, who would it be?
Dolly Parton.
That was easy. I always get nervous when people have an immediate answer because I'm kind of like, all right, which one are they going to struggle with? Everybody has to pause on one of these.
Yeah. Yeah. Dolly.
And that song would totally work because, like I said earlier, you have a Dolly vibe, so that would totally. pan
Thank you.
out.
That's the biggest compliment I could give.
Well, if you could headline any venue, where would you play?
I've got several. Can I have is
Yeah,
it a multiple?
throw them all out there.
I mean, everybody wants to play Red Rocks.
Oh yeah, that's my number
wanna-
2 most mentioned. Well, I think everyone says Green, and then they say, "Oh, but maybe Red Rocks." So it's like everyone
Yeah.
throws those two in here.
Yeah. I like to. Honestly, number one would be the Hollywood Bowl.
Wow.
That would definitely be number one, and then Red Rocks would be cool. Yeah, I've already played Luckenbach. I'm good. Oh, I know. I'd love to play at American Airlines in Dallas because that's where I decided to do music. I think that would be a very full circle moment.
Oh wow, yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'm dreaming as big as I can.
You never know. Were you seeing a concert there when you decided it?
Yes.
Who are you
Yeah.
seeing?
Oh, this is a whole nother story. I ended up. So I'll try to make it quick. I was going through a really hard time. My whole family was. It was just we're all in a really dark place, and my dad surprised me with tickets to see an artist whose album I've listened to 300 times since I discovered him the year prior. And we were driving up there, and he got me tickets in the nosebleed seats, and I just couldn't be more excited. It surprised me, and it was kind of a last minute thing. And on the way up there, I truly felt God tell me you were going to meet the artist. And I was like, okay. I didn't really have any question about it. I knew that night I was going to meet him. And just by a crazy chain of events, I ended up meeting Hunter Hayes. And
wow.
got to tell him how much his music meant to me. And that night, I just felt like God said, this is what I've called you to do. And yeah, so I think that would be a very, very much a full circle moment to be able to step on that stage.
That'd be really cool. I've always
Yeah.
said he could sub in for Rascal Flatts if their singer ever had a bad night. Like, he sounds just
Yep.
like them.
Yep.
I've only been in that arena once, and it was to see Shania Twain. I think I was the only dude over the age of. Well, I think I was the only dude in there, but it was
That's awesome.
a great show.
That's awesome.
So the big finale question: what is the funniest or craziest story you can tell from your music career so far?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I've had a stalker. That's pretty crazy, right? I mean, I'm sure it'll happen again. It's a crazy world, but
It could either be that or all these what is it, the sugar mom business proposals on your
Oh my
Instagram?
gosh. They're looking for sugar babies. I get messages for it all the time. And at some point, like, I was like, I'm just gonna start posting these. Like, they're really funny. And anyway, yeah, apparently I could be banking in another line of work, but
If you hadn't met Hunter Hayes, just think where it would have gone.
yes, yeah. I mean, I'm supposed to marry Hunter anyway, so let's be real. Yeah, oh man, I'd have to think even more about that. There's been a lot of crazy things. The most uncomfortable by far was the stalker. I mean, just to feel that unsafe and have so many people having to step in and protect you, like, it's not a good feeling. I don't recommend it. Yeah, carry a pistol, girls.
Yeah.
Know how to use it. Carry at least 2 pocket knives, and don't be afraid to shoot somebody, because that's something all girls need to know how to do. I'm a big advocate for self-defense. I know too many girls who have gotten beat up, robbed. There's so many people who get kidnapped. I know this got dark really quick, but seriously, like, I tell women all the time. I even teach them, like, I'll be like, here's a pocket knife. You keep this. This is how you use it, just to kind of give them an idea, because people don't think about it. And to be on the road all the time, alone, behind a bar, loading up thousands of dollars of equipment, I mean, you're not exactly in a good spot.
That's very true.
So, yeah, craziest thing would be that one stalker. That was a little too much.
When I see like people I know, female artists, who some of the comments they get on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and I'm just like, A, why would anyone actually post this stuff online? B, it's like, what if these people show up to actual shows? You know, I'm like,
yes.
I look at some of these guys, I'm like, look, I sometimes I will look at what their profile pictures look like just to kind of know. I'm like, if this guy walks in, I'm stage diving, you know, like,
yeah.
no.
Well, it's, I shouldn't say this. There's sometimes, like, if my dad's at a show, especially like an outdoor venue and stuff, I'll be like, hey, where are you? He's like, I'm sitting where I can see you. And Daddy might be packing. Because people do crazy stuff, especially when they drink.
Yep.
And I mean, we just have to be careful about that stuff. And I mean, I'm really big on self-defense. I don't think anybody should be without anyone, no matter their gender, their size, whatever. They need to be able to take hold of a situation, because so often, even if it isn't directed at you, you're still a bystander, and nobody needs to try and be the hero. But if you can stop something from happening, then by all means, equip yourself with those resources, because it happens quick.
Yeah. And no matter how much you prep for it, it's still kind of like a heat of the moment thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is also why on the previous episode, I was previewing this episode, and I was like, Julia, she's really sweet, but I wouldn't want to get in a fight with her. And Vanessa's like, no, she's the sweetest person ever. I said, yeah, but now we see why I said that.
I'm just glad you see that, because I'm very scrappy. That's what Max always like calling me, scrappy. I'm a country girl, and I hang out mostly with dudes. I give them a run for their money most of the time. So it was funny last night. I mean, this is just showing how country I am. I was talking to Matt Zavala, and I was like, never get bit by a zebra. And he was like, I don't need that advice. Like, I will never, ever be in a situation that I'll be bit by a zebra. And I was like, one day it's going to happen. And you're going to be like, well, like, the more you know.
Well, I was going to say, throw out another funny story for us to cap it up. And I'm like, if you've been bit by a zebra, I don't know if we're going to top that.
Oh, no, I haven't been bit by a zebra. I won't get bit by a zebra. I won't. This is something funny. This isn't as much a story. I guess I could add a story that has to do with it. I'm always just spouting off fun farm facts. Is what I call them. Growing up on a farm, I mean, it's just a way of life where everyday things are everyday things to somebody else.
Yeah.
Someone who grew up in the city, they're like, yeah, I've never had to worry about that. And so Matt and I went to Lake Charles several months ago for his birthday, and we just took a fun trip with him and some people to just go hang out. And I sang in casinos and everything, but never sat down at a table. I'm not much of a gambler.
Yeah.
You had to have something to gamble to do that. So anyway, I'm sitting at the table and I'm not even playing.
You need to have a sugar mama for that to happen.
apparently. So I'm sitting at the table and it's a blackjack table, and I'm looking at the other guys and I'm like, did you know armadillos have 4 babies at a time? And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, and they're all the same gender. They're like, no way. I'm like, yep. I'm like, did you know that a donkey's gestation could be up to 12 months? They're like, 12 months? I'm like, yep. And I'm telling them all these fun farm facts, just one after the other, and they're just dying laughing, but they're like in shock. It's just like common facts that aren't so common. And so that's my thing, is fun farm facts. I'm forever telling Matt, because Matt and I, he's one of my dearest friends, and he's very much a city boy. I'm forever warning him or telling him about something. He's like, that's boohickey. That's what he calls it, boohickey. I'm like, well, maybe I am boohickey.
It's going to be the word of the day. Today's word, boohickey.
Yeah, so that's if you ever get around me, I start spouting off fun farm facts, just tell me to shut up.
Yeah, you should just have a whole book of them.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of them. I was telling Matt something yesterday. I sent him that GIF, the "Make Me a Bird So I Can Fly Far, Far Away" from Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah.
he's like, that's boohickey. And I was like, I could teach you how to ride a horse. I could teach you how to wrestle a donkey and clean its hoof, dig out the infection, and duct tape a bag of saline and different antibiotics to its hoof. Like, if you ever need that, you know who to call.
I think my favorite one to drop on people that would fit that realm is when you're eating lunch with someone and you just smile real big and say, you ever seen an abscess pop before? It's like, a what?
Yeah.
It's like, Google it while you're eating right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, country people, we're crazy.
but we get each other.
Yes, exactly.
Well, on the note of popping abscesses and armadillos having weird gender babies and stuff, what song are we going to close this thing out with?
Michael Jackson. Let's think about this.
I didn't know she wrote this.
Yeah, repeat it. I'm gonna let you decide.
Cool.
We never did Who I Wanted You to Be, did we?
No, we didn't.
Okay, let's do that one.
Cool. That worked out perfect. Who I Wanted You to Be, and folks, I just lost count of what episode. Doesn't matter. You're following it better than I am. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, so I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And until I see you next time, which hopefully will be soon.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you putting up with all my talking.
Yeah. Makes my job easier. All right.
Thanks, Garrett.
No problem. We'll talk to you later.